What's up, everybody? Alex here. Welcome back to another Friday. It's What's on Tap. Friday weekly recap, whatever thing I'm doing today. So, beer time first. We have a local beer. It is from the Moeller Brew Barn out of Ohio, obviously. You know that because it's got that good Ohio craft beer. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Boom. There. This is Moeller Coaster. Get it? IPA. 6.3%. Take a flavorful ride with notes of orange, pine, citrus, grapefruit, and passion fruit. So I was just in a local bottle shop and just sort of browsing the coolers, and store owner made a recommendation, said a lot of people have been liking this. They just started canning and distributing not long ago. So why not give it a shot? All right, let's get a good pour in here. All right, look at that. See if anything is caked there. All right. A ton of particulates, but that's okay. That's what you get a lot of times in craft world. You know, on camera it actually appears a little bit darker than what it is, but it is fairly dark. It is hazy, but you know, that to me smells just like an old school IPA. You know, for beer drinkers out there, you know that over the past, 10 years now, it's just been such a craze for these hazy IPAs, these super low bitter, really turbid, hazy, super fruity IPAs that just feel like you're drinking like orange juice basically. And these sort of classic, what they would call like a West Coast style, you know, IPA has sort of lost its luster in the sense of people don't want like the dank, piney, bitter IPA anymore. You can kind of tell it's clearing up a little bit. Again, pretty dark though. It's still in the grand scheme of things here, but yeah, I mean, definitely grapefruit, definitely pine, some of that resin. It smells West Coast in the sense of that it's old school, but definitely has sort of that, what they would call East Coast, a little bit heavier malt background too. It kind of reminds me a bit of like a fruitier, like Dogfish Head beer. You know, they sort of popularized that East Coast IPA, but yeah, it smells good. It smells old school. And yeah, let's cheers it up, eh? Yeah, that's nice. And kind of follows on the taste too. I mean, old school. Best way to put it, old school. Dank, resinous, but not too bad. It cuts really nice in the back. Good malt background, backbone. Yeah, I'm into it. All right, there you go. Your 3 minutes and 20 seconds of beer talk. Let's get into what has been going on, what I've been listening to, and what's been fun this week. So first and foremost, my two really big arrivals this week I could not have been more excited for. This is a record from a band that's, they only put out 2 albums. They're 2 perfect albums. They're firmly placed in that sort of early 90s power pop, but it's almost more than power pop. There's a lot more sort of artsy, almost glam type stuff going on with it. And they finally reissued the records last year, I believe. And here's the thing. Originals went for like $1 gazillion. There was a reissue that was done several years ago that also now goes for like $1 gazillion. So this was the first time it was reissued again. Pretty affordable. The reviews on the sound, from what I understand from the audiophiles out there, have not been great, but I think it's fine. To me, it's important that it's on vinyl and I have it and it's official. And that is Spilt Milk from Jellyfish. So this was their second and last record, released in 1993. If you do not know Jellyfish and you are into ear candy, 90s pop, power pop, artsy, kind of Queen-inspired, very Beatle-esque, very psychedelic pop-inspired, incredible harmonies, again, tons of ear candy. Jellyfish Tree, they never had, I guess, they always had that critical acclaim, but never had that popular acclaim that so many others did. I do have an original of Belly Button, which was their first record. It's an original promo, and so I deeply needed this. And yeah, an amazing record. If you do not know Jellyfish, these two records, Spilt Milk and Belly Button, are just absolutely perfect if you're into that kind of stuff that I was mentioning before. So could not be more happy to have that finally on vinyl. Speaking of favorites, this is one of my favorite records of all time. And I've said before, either on a stream or on these videos, that my audiophile buying has kind of gone back in the sense that I will really only invest in like a Mobile Fidelity or an Analog Productions or some kind of quote unquote high-end audiophile record if it's like one of my favorite records of all time. And this was a perfect example of that. And it's Lou Reed's Berlin from 1973. My favorite Lou Reed record by far. And this is a top maybe 10 to 15 album of all time for me. And I know Lou Reed's a pretty polarizing figure, but I think that this record stands out alone amongst a lot of other stuff. Amazing concept record, rock opera produced by Bob Ezrin. And what I love about this MoFi is that, I've heard this record a million times, but listening to it felt like one of the first times I was listening to it. I was hearing a lot of things I didn't hear before, a lot of the embellishments, a lot of the orchestration, a lot of the Bob Ezrin work going on. But this is limited number. This is number 969, just a single MoFi, so $39. I just love it. It's made me fall in love with this album all over again, so I could not be more pleased to have it. Speaking of Lou Reed, I said, you know what, you listen to Berlin, why not do another random Lou Reed poll? And it reminded me, I have a ton. I think I'm only missing about 3 or 4 Lou Reed records, and those are like really latter day ones, like The Raven and Hudson River Meditations and that kind of stuff. But I ended up pulling Growing Up in Public from 1980. This is during the Arista days. And this was during a period, I mean, like I said before, Lou Reed is very polarizing. I can't imagine a whole lot of people that hate Berlin but really love this, right? If you don't like Berlin or Transformer, you're definitely not going to like this stuff. I mean, it's rock, it's poetic. He's sort of in this, like, he's not really singing. This did get pretty good reviews, though. I mean, people are saying it was his best thing since, like, the mid-'70s, all this kind of stuff. But this was a period for me where a lot of the records all sort of blend together a little bit. There are some good tracks on here. Think It Over. I really like that song. I like it when Lou gets emotional, although this is a more kind of rocked up album. But yeah, there you go. Lou Reed, Growing Up in Public. Pretty awful album cover. Pretty awful V-neck. But you could do that in 1980. I pulled this randomly today. Man, I forgot how much I love this band. And this was one of the first, I would say, bands of the last 20 years that I really fell in love with. And the band is My Morning Jacket. And their third record, It Still Moves. This came out in 2003. This is a quad sort of special edition, a bunch of bonus tracks, all that type of stuff. But it is a long record. I mean, this is a 71-minute record. But I don't remember where I was when I heard them the first time. I actually think I was watching some late night television, whether it was like Jimmy Kimmel or Jay Leno, whoever it was way back in the day. And the musical guests were My Morning Jacket, and they busted into One Big Holiday, which is probably their biggest song. It's off of this record. And I was like watching this, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are crazy good. And they've just always really impressed me. On ATO Records, independent label. And they've always sort of fallen in that indie, folk, rock, spacey, psychedelic sort of thing. I was talking to my boys Jason and Sam earlier today, and I was like, where do you categorize these guys? Because like Wikipedia says Southern rock, and it's not Southern rock. Just because they're from Louisville does not mean it's Southern rock. It is definitely indie, kind of spacey, kind of folky, just good old indie rock. Jim James's voice, I will say, might be acquired for some, but it certainly to me fits the music perfectly, and there's just some great stuff. This is my favorite My Morning Jacket record, and I listened to it earlier today and just was reminded why I love it so much. So yeah, if you don't know My Morning Jacket, check them out. Very cool band, and I love them. People have probably heard of this band before. This was a random Beatles poll. And of course, Yesterday and Today from 1966. No, obviously it's not a Butcher cover. If you couldn't tell enough, well, now you definitely can wear that cool gold record seal. This is also, I think, a later 70s reissue maybe. But yeah, the story with this was an American only sort of release that could kind of hold some stuff that was not released on the American version or North American version of Revolver, maybe Rubber Soul, and then a couple of other things. So yeah, you got some great stuff on here. Obviously, Nowhere Man and Your Bird Can Sing. I love that song. That is a top 10 Beatles tune for me. Day Tripper, everybody knows. Yesterday, of course, all that good stuff. So yeah, in the US, you would have these sort of, Beatles people know this obviously, but the Capitol would leave off records off the UK versions, and then they would save all of them and then release a comp, basically something like this later, and collect more dough on it. So yeah, but still great stuff. 1966. All right, jazz people, you'll love it. I was spinning Coltrane's Lush Life. Funny thing, this was one of the highest, best rated Coltrane albums out there, but it was one of these. He was off the Prestige label, and they pulled a bunch of, tapes together and made a record without his consent, and then turns out to be one of his best, right? So this was, I think, recordings from 57, 58, but wasn't released on Prestige until 61. But yeah, kind of a little bit of a mashup of artists and lineups here based on the sides. But you side A, you got the trio with Earl May and Art Taylor. Side B, you got a great lineup here with Coltrane, Donald Byrd, one of my absolute favorites on trumpet, Red Garland, one of my absolute favorites on piano, part of that first Miles Davis quintet, Paul Chambers, again, back on the quintet, Louis Hayes, and Al Heath playing drums on the second track. So yeah, Lush Life, man. I mean, this is just prime amazing Coltrane, and yeah, we love it. I was watching a live stream today with my boys, Rich Strickler, Steve All the World's a Stage, and Sam St. John, and they were talking about Soft Machine. And, they were like, do you know Soft Machine? You know Soft Machine? And Steve had said, oh, I played Soft Machine 3, or it's called Third, and wasn't really my thing. Well, that's important because when they got to their third record, they completely changed their sound and went kind of down a free jazz sort of route. And Soft Machine 3rd and 4th, they're not easy listens, especially if you're not coming from that free jazz background. But what I think is a brilliant, amazing, easy listen is Soft Machine Volume 2. So obviously this is their second record here. 2 tracks. Side 1 makes up the rhythmic melodies, and side 2 makes up Esther's Nose Job, of course, with a bunch of, obviously, tunes that sort of fall into each other. But man, I mean, this is kind of Canterbury, but this is a little bit more psychedelic than some of the Canterbury stuff. A little bit poppy, but not really. Extremely progressive. So yeah, Soft Machine, interesting. Although they kept the name, they went through a lot of different stylistic changes. The first 2 are very different than what would come after it. 3rd and 4th are a little bit more jazz, a little bit more free jazz, a little bit more noisy. You get to things like Bundles and 7th, and those are more jazz fusion records, of course, with Alan Holdsworth on those. So they went through a lot of different changes, but yeah, this was just a killer listen. I love this, and I love that cover too. Very psychedelic. This is an original US on Probe for you label people out there, subsidiary of ABC. So yeah, Soft Machine Volume 2, great record. So this past Tuesday, I was at a concert, got a chance to see the great ZZ Top. I was telling some people about that, and just amazing. Obviously, we missed Dusty, wish he was there. But it was just great to see Frank and Billy and just have them do their thing, especially Billy, man. I mean, he's such an icon, and being able to hear him play live was just, Billy Gibbons to me was one of those artists that I never truly appreciated his guitar playing because it felt, I don't know, it didn't feel technical to me. I don't know if that makes sense. But as I've grown older and started respecting the music more, nobody sounds like him. Nobody sounds like Billy Gibbons, and he's just amazing. Sorry, I got something in my eye there. And so it made me think, man, I wanted to go back. The ZZ Top sold gazillions in the 80s with Eliminator and those huge hits and the whole, thing that they were doing. And that stuff I just hasn't really aged that well for me. I love these first 3 records they did. The first 3 ZZ Top records, although didn't sell very well, to me are all just absolutely amazing, all on London Records. And so you have ZZ Top's first album, not necessarily a big hit, but Brown Sugar, the other Brown Sugar, right? What an album that is. Or I'm sorry, what a song that is. They actually did end up playing that on Tuesday night, followed up by the great Rio Grande Mud. Another just amazing stuff. Kicks off with Francine, amazing. The hit, it's not even a hit. Again, there weren't really hits off here, but Just Got Paid. Just Got Paid might be one of the best guitar riffs in rock and roll blues history, man. I mean, what a record. What a song that is. They did play Just Got Paid as well. And then obviously what would become the big hit, Tres Hombres. You're talking 1973 here. Nice little promo copy there as well. But, you know, this was huge because you had LaGrange on here. But what's really perfect on here is just this kicks off with Waiting for the Bus, Jesus Just Left Chicago, and then Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers. Man, what a way to kick off an album. So I loved seeing these guys. They played a good amount from Tres Hombres in the first other two records. A lot of the 80s stuff too, obviously, which is fine, but it was just great to see them, and yeah, good stuff. How about some more prog that is probably not... I don't know. If someone's looking to get into prog, I don't know that these guys would be my first recommendation. It's dense, it's tough to get into, but this is one of their best albums for sure. And that is Gentle Giant, The Power and the Glory from 1974. This was their fifth record. This is original UK copy, I believe. But yeah, if you don't know Gentle Giant, the prog heads will know Gentle Giant, probably love Gentle Giant, but they are not a... easily accessible type of prog band in comparison to like Genesis or Yes or even elements of King Crimson. I think the voices, the singing from Shulman are, a little bit shrieky. It depends who you are. It's very British sounding, take that for whatever it's worth. But yeah, what's cool about Gentle Giant is they had a kind of a streak here that this falls right in the middle of, where you could ask 100 Gentle Giant fans what their favorite album is, and they might all say something different. I guess mathematically doesn't make sense if you asked 100 of them. I wouldn't worry about it. But the point is they had a streak of records that are just all amazing, and this falls right in the middle of it, Power and the Glory, and so just a great record. How about this band that kind of comes a little bit out of, I guess, glam. But, glam was just kind of an interesting period of time, really, that was only about like 2 years. But this is a heavier record, and it's Give Us a Wink from Sweet. So this came out 1978, maybe 76, something like that. Yeah, a little bit later. So this is after their whole, Little Willie type stuff and Fox on the Run, all that good stuff. But it does have Action on here. Man, what a song that is. Later was covered by Def Leppard, and it still plays, will still show up in a Def Leppard set every once in a while as well. But there is some heavy stuff on here for a Sweet record. This is not your Little Willie Sweet. And I believe this was the first Sweet record that was all entirely written by the band members, not using the songwriting duo that they're using before. So yeah, it kicks off with Action. Man, what a song that is. Healer's great. Lady Starlight's great. Keep It In is an absolute banger. So yeah, Sweet, Give Us a Wink. A little bit more jazz by Via Jazz Organ, Larry Young with Unity. This is a great record. Again, another one of those Blue Note classic records here. The great Woody Shaw on trumpet, Joe Henderson on sax, Larry Young playing the organ, and then Elvin Jones coming over sort of from John Coltrane's band. So yeah, excellent stuff. This is great if you're into some funky jazz organ but want something a little bit more aggressive and out there than say like Jimmy Smith or something like that. So yeah, Unity by Larry Young gets a lot of spins here. This is a very random sort of pull, but I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, and it is Bad Animals from Heart. What year did this come out? This was obviously the 80s, maybe 86 or so. But this kicks off with Who Will You Run To, which was a big hit. Who will you run to when it all falls down? And then Alone, which was a mega hit, but it's also a cover. Heart during the 80s, they were having all these mega hits, but they weren't writing these songs. They were either covers or songs that other people were writing for them. There's the girl. I think they do this style of music really, really well. Obviously got a chance to see Heart not too long ago, several months ago. But yeah, Alone's on here, Who You Run To, Side 2, a couple other bangers. But yeah, you're talking what, mid to late 80s here. Bad Animals, what they used to call me. Let's go into some Jazz Fusion World. Weather Report's debut. So this was sort of on the, I guess a lot of the members that were coming from the Miles Davis's sort of funky fusion bitches brew idea. You're talking Joe Zawinul on here. You're talking obviously the great Wayne Shorter is on here. This was before Jaco Pastorius is in the band, but you know, incredible musicians and one of the leaders of jazz fusion for sure. I believe this was 1971, maybe. Miroslav Vidas Vidas on here, playing that bass before Jaco. But yeah, you know, it depends. You ask a lot of Weather Report fans, a lot of them will recommend Heavy Weather because that really is like a Jaco Pastorius sort of record. People love Jaco, and he's amazing. I love Jaco too. What's interesting though, when you look at the Weather Report sort of, I don't know, the canon, is the more and more Jaco was taking over, the less and less Wayne Shorter was composing, and the less and less Wayne Shorter composes, the less and less I care. So all that to say, this was the first. This is a great record, and yeah, how about it? Let's go into some psychedelic pop folk. These string of records here are amazing, and this is just somebody who I've just grown to love a lot. But Sunshine Superman from Donovan. This is what, 1966 or so? 66 or 67. I mean, right firmly in his psychedelic sort of pop singer-songwriter area. Obviously, Sunshine Superman was the big hit. The huge hit on here was Season of the Witch. But to me, where I love Donovan the most is these weird, dark, psyche, almost creepy in terms of the atmosphere of the music that's being played. Legend of a Girl Child, Linda. It's the second track on here. It's just sort of long, meandering, acoustic, again, almost just dark and creepy, but not creepy in a bad way. Creepy in like a Halloween way. Yeah, just great stuff. So yeah, there's a lot going on with his record label over in Europe at the time, and so I don't think these were really released there, so they're on Epic over here. Yeah, Donovan, this whole era, again, Sunshine Superman, Mellow Yellow, A Gift from a Flower to a Garden, all that type of stuff. Just a great stuff all the way around. This was a record I had not listened to probably since I got it a couple years ago, but I do see it shown a lot in the vinyl community, as it were, and I might have enjoyed this more than I enjoy the records from the band that this was coming from, and you'll make sense here in a second. But it's called Paul Kantner, and you know, Paul Kantner and Jefferson Starship blows against the Empire. So this was 1970 or 71. Paul Kantner kind of breaks away and does this grand conceptual semi-rock opera, but not really. You know, it's basically a concept record about hippies. But it's obviously very folky. It's a little bit dark. You know, it's got everybody and their brother playing on it and their sister. And I found myself really, really liking this. I mean, I'm not used to sort of the Jefferson Airplane going down this sort of conceptual route. And granted, this is not Jefferson Airplane, but I found myself digging this big time. You all know I'm big into concept albums and the big story and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And this falls into it, but in a really different way. So yeah, Blows Against the Empire, Paul Kantner, what a record that is. Let's jump into basically some AOR. At this point, this was just a pop album, even though some of the earlier stuff was significantly heavier and a little bit more progressive. You know, it's funny, at this point, Casablanca Records was really the record label of Kiss, and then Disco, and then what was supposed to sort of be Kiss Jr., although it never really worked out that way, was Angel. So, yeah, this is Angel Sinful. I think this is also their fifth record, came out in 1979. By this point, they're like is full on like AOR pop stuff. I mean, it's inoffensive, you know. It's not bad by any means. Great hooks. You still got the Frank Domino on here. You still got Greg Giuffria on here. You still got Punky Meadows on here. So all that is still at play. But yeah, I mean, you could tell that they're going for like this sort of glammy type situation there. But yeah, Sinful from Angel. Cool little pop AOR song. This is a lot of people's favorite record from this band. It's not my favorite. That is always going to be Love Over Gold, but I can also understand why so many people love Making Movies from Dire Straits. Obviously, the huge hit on here was Romeo and Juliet, which is one of the best singles of the 80s by far. I mean, what a great, great song that is. Tunnel of Love, to me, my favorite Dire Straits are those sort of long, extended, dare I say, progressive type songs. That's why I love Love Over Gold so much, is because of the track Telegraph Road. But Making Movies, Tunnel of Love also has that. And you got the hilarious Lace Boys, which is all about, I think, like some Nazis or something that were like also spending some time in the gay bars. So we love that. But yeah, Dire Straits, Making Movies, great record, and it was awesome to spin that. Two more left, some more jazz, and this is just worth showing. I'm a huge Miles Davis fan all the time. This is Miles Davis in Europe from 1964. So this was sort of the debut-ish of, I'm sorry, not the debut. This was the first great quintet, no. Easy, Alex, figure it out. This was the first incarnation of the second great quintet. And so before you had Wayne Shorter, you had, I believe, George Coleman on here playing saxophone. And so this was one of the other recordings that you would have. You'd also have that incarnation of the second great quintet on Seven Steps to Heaven. But yeah, what's cool about this, and this is just always fun, cool stuff from the jazz collector standpoint, is that this is a white label promo. So Columbia 2i mono promo, which is very cool. And then last record I'm going to show y'all is kind of a comeback record, in a sense that it wasn't like it was coming back from a negative record, but definitely coming back from a negative experience where I think a lot of people in the music world were wondering where they were going to go. And to me, this is like the Dickie Betts MVP album, and that's Brothers and Sisters, 1973. This was right after, well, not right after, this was after the death of Dwayne Allman, obviously. They go and do Eat a Peach, which was half studio, half live. And then during sort of the writing, recording of this, you would lose Barry Oakley, the bassist, on like the same stretch of Highway in a very similar way, very creepy. But this was the commercial peak. And so it's interesting that I think a lot of Allman Brothers fans, myself included, are always going to look at Fillmore East and the first two records even, and Eat a Peach as like, that is the glory days. But this was by far the most commercially successful because of the huge hits. Ramblin' Man, Jessica, you had Southbound, you just had, this definitely has like a countryer flair to it, and a lot of that is because at this point Dickie Betts is sort of the band leader during all of this. Fun fact, so this is Butch Trucks' son, I believe. And then I believe this is, might be Barry Oakley's daughter. Could be wrong on that. Butch Trucks' son, maybe Barry Oakley's daughter. On Brothers and Sisters. So, yeah, there you go. That's what it is. Happy Friday to all of you. Appreciate y'all watching again and hanging out during this 28-minute plus video, and hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll see you all on Sunday for Sunday Fun Day. Take care now. Bye.